Shabbat Shalom, everyone. First, Sarah, thank you for bringing our attention to Minneapolis and your hometown. I'm going to be speaking about that, but just wanted to send our blessings to you and anyone you know there who is on the ground fighting in this moment. Thank you. This week has been, again, and we say this all the time, but this week has been a very particularly painful week, a difficult week in the world. Beyond what all of us are going through with COVID, we see how the racism, white supremacy of our society endangers people differently in this world, even as all of us are feeling vulnerable, endangers people differently. And the callous murder of George Floyd has been haunting me all week. Sarah spoke about love, and I actually today, I'm going to speak about anger, but I think that ultimately we'll end up in the same place. I have been sitting in this week a lot of feelings of personal pain and feelings of righteous anger. I'm angry at the increasingly long list of everyday things that I can do, but that others cannot do. Jogging, bird watching among them. I am angry at the fact that Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, Philando Castile, Eric Garner, Trayvon Martin, Tamir Rice, George Floyd, and many others will never have their lives back. I'm angry that I live in a world where my friends and colleagues of color do not feel safe and worry every day about the safety of their children in a way that I don't have to. I'm angry by the responses that I witnessed on a Facebook group for moms or parents that basically said it was too political for New York City parents to talk about their fears for their Black children. I'm angry that in a time of social distancing, people have to be in the streets in order for one of George Floyd's murderers to be convicted of a crime. I'm angry that my colleagues reported that after their peaceful protests in Foley Square, that many were met with tear gas and violence, knocking them out of vehicles. These are people that I know that were there. The list of my anger is longer, but I'll stop there because I think you get the picture and many of you probably feel similarly. So every time I went to think about what to say this Shabbat, I struggled because of my anger. But then I went to study the text that we read today, just now. And not only did I find in it, of course, do not murder, and all the basic things we know about humanity that we hope to be true, I also found my anger reflected in the text itself. Through the image of Elkanah, the image of a jealous and impassioned God. And I wonder, what might happen if we reclaim the aspect of God that is angry, that is not happy with humanity when humanity is not acting its best? What might happen if we reclaim for ourselves a space of anger, of righteous anger? People don't really want us to feel angry. That's not something that we are taught is okay. But what if we reclaim that space for ourselves? So I want to point us to this text in the Torah that I'm talking about. In Deuteronomy, the second iteration of the Ten Commandments that we read today, and also in Exodus, in the section we read yesterday on Shavuot, and we read in the Parsha cycle, of Yitro, we hear these words in the commandment not to worship idols. Lo tishtachave lahem v'lo ta'avdem ki anochi Adonai Elohecha el kana hoked avon avot al banim v'al shlishim v'al rebeim lisonai. You shall now not bow down to them or serve them, these idols. For I, the Lord your God, am an impassioned God, visiting the guilt of the parents upon the children, upon the third and upon the fourth generations of those who reject me, but showing kindness, osei chesed la'alafim, showing kindness to the 1,000th generation of those who love me and keep my commandments. El Kana, jealous, impassioned, angry God. While God is depicted as much more kind than angry, because God forgives for 1,000 generations and is only angry for 3 or 4, God is still undeniably impassioned. And at least he has the potential to act out in this anger. And as we see this played out elsewhere in the Tanakh, especially in the prophets, when this idolatry comes to be and lures the Israelite nation into behaviors that are not appropriate. So let's be honest. The vision of an angry, jealous, impassioned deity has not played well over the years. In fact, it has been for centuries among some of the greatest critiques of Judaism, especially by Christian scholars and leaders who have contrasted the Old Testament God of anger to the New Testament God of love, Old Testament. If you Google God and Old Testament, you will find many sources that support ongoing comparison and supremacy of the good God versus the old and angry one. This is why likely speaking openly about God as angry may have me and others feeling a little embarrassed, a little shy, because we have absorbed many centuries of critique at best, really often oppression, based on the vision of El Kana. And the critiques of an angry God also come from within the Jewish community. Yesterday, we recited the 13 attributes, the 13 attributes of God: compassion, the ones we say on high holidays and all festivals. The 13 attributes were cut and pasted from a section of the Torah, and with the aspects of the divine that are not so kind and compassionate excluded. And Maimonides, interestingly, teaches the doctrine of imitatio Deo, imitating the divine, but is very clear that we should guard ourselves ever from becoming too angry, rather seeking the middle path. The discomfort with God's anger seems to translate into discomfort with anger in general, with rabbinic, medieval, Musar, and Hasidic teachers alike warning against the dangers of anger. In fact, there is an entire Wikipedia page dedicated to the topic of Judaism and anger, and it says, and I quote, "Anger in Judaism is treated as a negative trait to be avoided whenever possible." So I think it's time for us to go back to our original text, our text, and reconstruct the God of anger, to not be afraid of this God, and to, in the same vein, not be afraid of the anger that bubbles inside of ourselves. Instead of trying to distance ourselves from anger as much as possible, perhaps we can embrace it, allow it, make space for us, and allow it to motivate us towards justice. I want to be clear that I'm not speaking about all kinds of anger. It's not healthy or positive necessarily for us to hold on to all personal slights. Interpersonal relational anger is a topic for another time. I'm talking about the kind of anger that emerges from the commandment we read today. Anger at those who deny God or godliness, those that deny the humanity of the other in their hearts or in their actions, those who worship false idols, the idols of power and supremacy, those who worship institutions over life. And I want to share 2 reasons why I think an embrace of anger and of El-Kana is a spiritual necessity in general and in particular at this moment. The first is informed from mindfulness, and the second is an approach by Abraham Joshua Heschel that I want to share regarding the prophets. In terms of mindfulness, or in terms of that perspective, I wanted to say that the dismissal of the angry God historically has also correlated with a sense that we should be dismissive of the anger in our own hearts, that we should distance ourselves from anger. But I know from my own experience that when we embrace any emotion, including anger, we make space for our own feelings, but most importantly, we make space for the feelings of others. If we shut down anger, we don't have space for other people's anger. If we allow ourselves to feel our own hurt and our own pain, we have the capacity to make space for the pain of others. And we need that space right now. There are so many people who are hurting, Black people who are hurting, brown people who are hurting, and they need to be heard in their anger. They need to not be said, stop being so angry. You know, like so many people say, we need to be able to tolerate and handle and open and embrace this anger, to really be an ally to people who are struggling right now in this moment in the fight for racial justice, who are impacted directly. Feeling, not denying our emotions, is a door, is a window into the pain of others and into empathy. And now I want to return to this theology of anger from a Jewish lens. You could argue that the mindfulness is as well a Jewish lens, but for here, an explicitly Jewish lens. And I want to offer a teaching from Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, blessed memory. In his book on the prophets, he writes, and I'm going to say it twice because it's just like so powerful and takes a minute. He writes, divine anger is not the antithesis of love, but its counterpart, a help to justice as demanded by true love. Divine anger is not the antithesis of love, it is its counterpart. Whoever has been saying that it is the God of love versus the God of anger is wrong. The God of love and the God of anger are the same. The God that loves humanity and wants us to do the right thing is the same God that is going to be angry when we do not do that thing. And just like human beings, God is a mirror for ourselves. If we do not, our anger is a reflection of our love. If we want to see humanity thrive, then we are naturally going to be angry at those who defy the truth that we are all created in the image of the divine, that we are all deserving of innate dignity and respect. We are going to be angry when society does not live up to its promise to serve all people. And that anger is not bad. That anger is an expression of our love. It is not its opposite, it is its counterpart. We are angry because we love, and we want to see the world be better, and we want to see human beings be better. Heschel also says, the second part of his phrase, divine anger is a help to justice. A help to justice as demanded by true love. What does it mean for anger to be a help to justice? A demand. If we love something and we know it's not being treated the right way, then we will be woken up to what needs to happen into our world. We will allow ourselves to dream of a better world. And we might get angry when those are trampled on. I want to read a quote from Audre Lorde. She says, famous Black activist and thinker, she says, "I cannot hide my anger or spare you guilt, not hurt feelings, nor answering anger, for to do so insults and trivializes all of our efforts. Guilt is not a response to anger. It is a response to one's actions or lack of action. It leads to change. If anger leads to change, then it can be useful, since it is then no longer guilt, but the beginning of knowledge." Anger, she says, is the beginning of knowledge. Just like Heschel says, it is the demand of love. We know what could be better. We know what's wrong, and it's a call to justice. This anger, an expression of our love and our hope and our dreams, can be a tool to help us call out injustice and call for a better way of being in the world. Heschel also said, "Anger may touch off deadly explosives, but the complete absence of anger stultifies moral sensibility," which is resonant with the popular phrase, "If you are not angry, you are not paying attention." I'm angry. As you all have heard today, I am angry. But I'm angry, and that anger allows me to make space for other people's anger, but I'm angry most importantly because that I love human beings. I love this gift of life, and I want everyone to thrive. And all of us, if we look in our hearts, we want every human being to thrive to their potential. And that is love. Sometimes that may come with anger. Let ourselves feel the anger, because it is a reflection of that love and that commitment and that hope and that possibility. Anger and love are not opposites. God of love and God of anger are not opposites. They're not two different gods. We need both. We need the anger to fire us up and motivate us, and we need the love to sustain us. We need both. So in this moment of extraordinary pain, of extraordinary injustice, of holistic injustice, of uncovering of layers and layers of injustice, I want to invite us to call on the God of love and call on the God of anger, the same God, to support us in our work. And I want to invite us to dig deep into our hearts, to make space for love, but to make space for anger, and to know that one is a reflection of the other. May we find our, I don't have Sarah's poem memorized, but this is not gonna, freedom is not gonna come anytime soon, but every day we work towards it, and we hold both, we commit to both. Let our anger and let our love lift us up into a better tomorrow. And let's fight, continue the fight. Praying for safety for all of those who are out in the streets, praying for safety and peace and shlemut for our entire world and for a better humanity.